The day Earth changed forever started like any other at the Global Space Defense Command. Captain James Walker stood at his station, watching the countless blips on the massive radar screen. 20 years of service had taught him that space was vast and mostly empty, but today would prove him wrong. At exactly 3:47 p.m. Eastern Time, every electronic device on Earth flickered. The massive ships appeared out of nowhere, their metallic hulls reflecting sunlight like artificial stars. 12 vessels, each larger than the biggest city on Earth, positioned themselves in perfect formation around the planet. The world held its breath. Military forces worldwide went on high alert, but their weapons seemed laughable against these tremendous vessels. Then came the message, broadcasting on every frequency, in every language. People of Earth, we are the Galactic Council. Your species has been observed since you first split the atom. The time has come for humanity to face judgment. In the chaos that followed, the world's leaders scrambled to form a unified response. Dr. Tom Reed, a brilliant diplomat who had spent his life studying human conflict resolution, was chosen to lead the human delegation. Along with him went Admiral Mary Cooper, Earth's most decorated military strategist, and Professor David White, whose groundbreaking work in physics had revolutionized human understanding of space travel. The Council gave humanity 48 hours to prepare. A small transport vessel would arrive to collect the chosen representatives. The world's governments worked frantically to brief the delegation on every possible scenario. But how could anyone prepare for humanity's first contact with an advanced alien civilization that held their fate in its hands? The chosen team gathered in Geneva, where the transport would collect them. Dr. Reed stood at the window of the preparation room, his weathered face reflecting both worry and determination. Admiral Cooper methodically checked her tablet, reviewing thousands of pages of protocols they'd hastily assembled. Professor White muttered equations under his breath, trying to understand the technology that could make such massive ships seemingly invisible to Earth's detection systems. "We're not ready for this," Professor White said, breaking the tense silence. "Their technology is centuries beyond ours. We're like cavemen trying to negotiate with a modern army." Admiral Cooper looked up from her tablet. "Maybe. But cavemen survived because they were clever and adaptable. That's humanity's strength, we learn, we adapt, we overcome." Dr. Reed turned from the window. "They've been watching us. They've seen our wars, our poverty, our destruction of the environment. But they've also seen our art, our music, our ability to unite in crisis, our relentless drive to explore and understand. We need to show them both our potential and our awareness of our flaws." At exactly midnight, the transport arrived. Unlike the massive ships above, this vessel was elegant and small, about the size of a commercial airplane. It landed silently in the designated area, its surface rippling like liquid metal. The door opened with a soft hiss, revealing a being that made all three humans catch their breath. The alien stood nearly 8 feet tall, its body covered in what looked like flowing robes made of light itself. Its features were almost human-like, but with an otherworldly grace that made it clear this was no creature of Earth. "I am Guide," it said, its voice resonating in their minds rather than their ears. "I will take you to the Council." As they boarded the transport, Dr. Reed noticed there were no visible controls, no seats, no signs of typical spacecraft interior. Instead, the walls seemed to pulse with living light, and gravity shifted to accommodate their movement perfectly. "The Council represents 5,000 civilizations across 3 galaxies," Guide explained as they ascended through Earth's atmosphere. Each species faced this judgment when they reached a crucial point in their development. Some passed. Many failed. What happens to those who fail? Admiral Cooper asked, her military training evident in her steady voice. Guide's expression remained unchanged. "They are contained. Their development is arrested. They remain within their solar system, unable to threaten the greater galaxy until they evolve beyond their destructive tendencies." Professor White's scientific curiosity overcame his fear. And those who pass. They join us. They share in the knowledge of millennia. They become part of something greater than themselves. The transport approached the largest of the Council ships. Through the transparent walls, they could see Earth below, beautiful and fragile, a blue marble suspended in the vast darkness of space. Dr. Reed squared his shoulders. In a few moments, they would face beings who held humanity's future in their hands. They carried with them the hopes, dreams, and potential of every human who had ever lived or would live. As the transport docked with the massive Council ship, he remembered something his grandfather used to say: humanity's greatest strength isn't in our muscles or our machines. It's in our ability to look at the impossible and say, let's give it a try anyway. The door opened, revealing a vast chamber that seemed to stretch forever. And there, waiting for them, was the Galactic Council, ready to judge whether humanity deserved a place among the stars. The Council chamber defied human understanding. The walls seemed to be made of living light, shifting between colors that had no names in Earth's languages. Beings of all shapes and sizes occupied floating platforms that spiraled upward into infinity. Some appeared almost human, while others were so alien that the human mind struggled to comprehend their forms. At the center of it all stood three massive beings who radiated authority. The first judge appeared to be made of crystalline structures that caught and reflected light in impossible ways. The second judge was a swirling mass of what looked like liquid metal, constantly changing shape but maintaining a vaguely humanoid form. The third judge was the most bizarre, a being of pure energy contained within a field of shifting geometric patterns. Humans, the first judge's voice resonated in their minds, you stand before us to be judged. Your species has reached a turning point. Your technology advances rapidly, but your wisdom lags behind. You split the atom before you learn to split your differences. You reached for the stars while millions of your own kind still starved. Dr. Reed stepped forward, his diplomatic training kicking in despite his awe. Honorable Council, we acknowledge our imperfections. But I ask you to consider that our flaws and our potential are two sides of the same coin. The second judge's liquid metal form rippled. Your kind wages war over invisible lines drawn on your planet's surface. You kill each other over different interpretations of the same beliefs. You poison your only habitable world for temporary profit. How can such a species be trusted with advanced technology? Admiral Cooper spoke up, her military bearing evident. Because we learn from our mistakes. Yes, we wage war, but we also create peace. After every major conflict, we've built systems to prevent future wars. The United Nations, international law, cooperative space programs, these all emerged from our darkest moments. The third judge's energy form pulsed with what might have been interest. Yet your United Nations lacks real power. Your international laws are often ignored. Your space programs are still divided by national interests. Professor White stepped forward. That's true. But consider this, despite all our divisions, despite all our conflicts, humanity has never stopped reaching for the stars. We've never stopped asking questions, seeking answers, trying to understand our place in the universe. Our curiosity drives us to look beyond our differences. The chamber filled with murmurs as thousands of alien species discussed these words. The human delegation noticed some seemed supportive, while others radiated clear disapproval. We will test your claims, the first judge announced. 3 trials await you. Each will measure a different aspect of your species' worthiness. Success in all 3 means acceptance into the galactic community. Failure in any means containment. The second judge's form shifted. The first trial begins now. Your planet faces an immediate crisis. How you handle it will demonstrate your species' ability to unite in the face of danger. Suddenly, a holographic image of Earth appeared in the center of the chamber. Red dots began appearing across the planet's surface, dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. We have activated dormant volcanic sites across your planet, the third judge explained. Within 24 hours, they will erupt simultaneously. This will trigger a minor nuclear winter, destroying much of your food production capability. How will your species handle this crisis? Dr. Reed's face paled, but his voice remained steady. You're testing our ability to cooperate globally under extreme pressure. Precisely, the first judge confirmed. You may use your transport to return to Earth and coordinate your species' response. We will observe. You have 24 hours. As they rushed back to the transport, Admiral Cooper was already on her emergency communicator, linking with Earth's military commands. Professor White pulled out his tablet, frantically calculating the potential impact of thousands of simultaneous eruptions. Dr. Reed closed his eyes, mentally preparing for the greatest diplomatic challenge in human history, convincing the entire world to work together with no time for debate or discussion. Guide appeared as they boarded the transport. Many species fail this test, it said quietly. They descend into chaos, each region trying to save itself at the expense of others. Some attempt to use the crisis to seize power. Others simply give up. That won't happen to us, Dr. Reed said firmly. Humanity has faced extinction-level events in our myths and stories for centuries. We've prepared for this in our fiction, our movies, our emergency protocols. Now we'll show the Council what humans can do when we work together. As the transport descended toward Earth, they could already see the news spreading. Emergency broadcasts in every language were alerting the world to the impending disaster. The question now was, would humanity unite in the face of this threat, or prove the Council's doubts correct? They had 24 hours to save their world and prove humanity's worth to the galaxy. The world erupted into action the moment the human delegation landed. Within 1 hour, the United Nations had convened an emergency session, and for the first time in history, there was no debate, no political maneuvering. The threat was too immediate, too overwhelming for anything but complete cooperation. Dr. Reed stood before the hastily assembled Global Emergency Response Team, his voice carrying across the packed auditorium. We have 23 hours before every dormant volcano on Earth erupts simultaneously. This isn't a natural disaster, it's a test. The Galactic Council wants to see if we can unite and survive. Professor White projected a global map showing thousands of red dots, each representing a volcano about to awaken. The immediate threats are ash clouds, earthquakes, and tsunamis. The long-term threat is global cooling that will devastate our food production. We need solutions for both. Admiral Cooper stepped forward, her military precision now focused on saving lives rather than taking them. Every navy, every air force, every army on Earth is now under unified command. We've already begun evacuating high-risk areas. But we need more than military solutions. The next few hours showed humanity at its finest. Countries that had been enemies for generations now shared resources without hesitation. The world's greatest scientists connected virtually, pooling their knowledge to face this unprecedented threat. Farmers and agricultural experts began planning for indoor farming on a massive scale. In India, engineers worked frantically to reinforce ancient flood control systems. In Japan, experts in earthquake-resistant architecture shared their knowledge globally through real-time translations. Russian nuclear submarines were dispatched to help evacuate Pacific Islands, while Chinese container ships were converted into floating evacuation centers. The Internet, usually a place of division, became a lifeline of unity. Social media platforms transformed into emergency coordination centers. Ordinary people opened their homes to strangers fleeing danger zones. Restaurants converted their kitchens into emergency food production centers. Schools became shelters. 16 hours before the eruptions, Professor White made a breakthrough. We can't stop the eruptions, but we can minimize their impact. If we detonate controlled explosions in specific locations, we can create channels to direct the lava flow away from populated areas. Dr. Reed, who hadn't slept in 20 hours, looked up from his coordination screens. How many locations? Thousands. We'd need perfect coordination and split-second timing. Admiral Cooper smiled for the first time since the crisis began. That's what the military does best. We have precision bombers and special forces teams ready worldwide. Give us the coordinates. The plan was audacious. Using a combination of military precision, scientific calculation, and international cooperation, humanity would try to control one of the largest geological events in Earth's history. Success meant survival. Failure meant proving the Council right about their species' limitations. 12 hours before the eruptions, the operation began. Teams from every nation worked together, setting charges at precise locations around volcanoes worldwide. Brazilian special forces worked alongside Iranian engineers. American bombers flew alongside Chinese jets. North and South Korean troops dug channels side by side. 6 hours before the eruptions, the global weather monitoring system detected the first tremors. Professor White's calculations showed they were right on schedule. Dr. Reed coordinated with world leaders, ensuring evacuations were proceeding smoothly. Admiral Cooper directed the largest coordinated military operation in human history, but this time the enemy was nature itself. 1 hour before the eruptions, humanity held its breath. Billions watched through their screens as the final preparations were made. In the council chamber above, thousands of alien species observed with intense interest. Never had they seen a species respond to the first trial with such coordination and innovation. When the eruptions began, they were even more devastating than predicted. The sky darkened with ash, the ground shook worldwide, and tsunamis threatened coastal cities. But humanity was ready. The carefully planned channels directed much of the lava away from population centers. Emergency shelters protected millions. The global communication network, despite the stress, held together. Hour after hour, reports came in from around the world. Deaths were minimal. Property damage was severe but manageable. Most importantly, the worst of the ash was being channeled away from critical agricultural areas, giving humanity a fighting chance at preventing the predicted famine. In the council chamber, the 3 judges observed with what might have been surprise. The first judge's crystalline form shimmed. They adapted faster than any species we've tested. The second judge's liquid metal form rippled. They turned their military machines to saving lives rather than taking them. The third judge's energy pattern pulsed. Most interesting is how they used their greatest weakness, their diversity, as a strength. Different approaches from different cultures provided multiple solutions. Back on Earth, as the last eruptions subsided, the human delegation received a message from Guide. The first trial is complete. The Council awaits your return. Dr. Reed looked at his companions, their faces streaked with ash and exhaustion. We showed them humanity's true nature, he said. When we face extinction, we don't fight each other, we fight together. Professor White checked his final calculations. The damage is severe, but we'll survive. We proved we can handle a global crisis without descending into chaos. Admiral Cooper straightened her ash-covered uniform. But this was just the first trial. What else do they have planned for us? As they boarded the transport to return to the Council, they knew they had passed the first test. But 2 more trials awaited, and humanity's future still hung in the balance. The human delegation returned to the council chamber with a mix of exhaustion and pride. Earth was damaged but surviving, its people more united than ever before. As they stood before the massive chamber of alien observers, Dr. Reed noticed something different, a subtle shift in how they were being watched. There was respect now, perhaps even curiosity. The first judge's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been approval. You have survived the trial of unity. Now comes the trial of wisdom. The second judge's liquid metal form swirled. Your species has proven it can cooperate in crisis. But can it make the right choice when faced with an impossible decision? The chamber darkened, and a new hologram appeared. This time, it showed a massive spacecraft, clearly of alien design, drifting at the edge of Earth's solar system. This vessel, the third judge explained, contains the combined knowledge of a civilization that destroyed itself 1 million years ago. Their technology was far advanced beyond your current level. You may claim this gift, but there is a price. The first judge continued, the vessel's defense systems are still active. They will interpret any attempt to access the ship as an attack. The automated response will destroy one of your cities at random. Professor White's scientific curiosity warred with his horror. You're asking us to choose between advanced knowledge and innocent lives? Correct, the second judge confirmed. The knowledge within could advance your civilization by centuries. Cure diseases. Solve your energy crisis. Enable true space travel. But accessing it will certainly result in the death of millions of your people. You have 1 hour to decide. The human delegation huddled together, the weight of this decision crushing down on them. We can't sacrifice a city, Admiral Cooper said firmly. No knowledge is worth that price. Professor White ran his hands through his hair in frustration. But think of the millions we could save with that knowledge. Cures for cancer, solutions to climate change, we could save far more lives than we'd lose. Dr. Reed stood silently, his diplomatic training helping him see all angles. We need to consult Earth. This isn't a decision 3 people can make for all humanity. The emergency communication channel was opened. World leaders, still coordinating volcano recovery efforts, were presented with the choice. The debate that followed was intense but surprisingly thoughtful. The Chinese president spoke of responsibility to future generations. The Brazilian leader argued for the sanctity of human life. The Indian prime minister questioned the morality of sacrificing the few for the many. As the debate continued, a young African scientist on the recovery team raised her hand. What if we're missing the point? She asked. Maybe the test isn't about what we choose, but how we choose. Dr. Reed's eyes widened as understanding dawned. He turned back to the council. Before we decide, I have a question. This civilization that destroyed itself, did they face a similar choice? The third judge's energy patterns shifted. They did. And they chose the knowledge, didn't they? They sacrificed their own people for advancement. The first judge's crystalline form sparkled. They did. And that choice set them on the path to their eventual destruction. Dr. Reed straightened his shoulders. Then humanity's answer is no. We will not sacrifice innocent lives for technological advancement. Knowledge gained through the death of our own people would poison our civilization's soul. We choose to advance at our own pace, keeping our humanity intact. The chamber erupted in a chorus of alien languages. The second judge's liquid metal form rippled with what seemed like satisfaction. An interesting choice. You reject power in favor of principle. We reject the idea that advancement must come at the cost of our humanity, Admiral Cooper added. If that means taking longer to reach the stars, so be it. Professor White stepped forward. We'll find our own way to that knowledge. It may take centuries longer, but we'll do it without compromising who we are. The third judge's energy form pulsed brightly. The trial of wisdom is complete. You have passed. Relief washed over the human delegation, but it was tempered by the knowledge that one final trial remained. The first judge spoke again. Your species has shown it can unite in crisis. You have proven you understand the price of progress. But the final trial will test something else entirely, your capacity for forgiveness. The chamber darkened once more, and a new hologram appeared. What they saw made all three humans gasp in shock. Dr. Reed's face went pale, Admiral Cooper's hands clenched into fists, and Professor White took an involuntary step backward. This, the second judge announced, is the truth about humanity's first contact with alien life. The truth your governments have hidden for 70 years. Before them floated an image that would change everything they thought they knew about human history, and challenge humanity's ability to forgive in ways they never imagined possible. The hologram showed a crashed spacecraft in the desert, its design unmistakably alien. The date stamp read, July 7, 1947, Roswell, New Mexico. But this was no conspiracy theory, this was official council footage. We were there, the first judge stated. The ship was not ours, but a young species like yourselves, making their first experimental faster-than-light jump. They crashed on your world. The second judge continued, your military found them. 3 survivors. Injured. Frightened. Sending distress signals. Dr. Reed felt his throat tighten. What happened to them? The third judge's energy form darkened. They were captured. Studied. Dissected. Their distress calls were blocked. Their ship was hidden. Their existence was denied. The human delegation stood in horrified silence. Admiral Cooper's military training warred with her humanity. Professor White thought of all the technological advances that had seemed to appear suddenly in the 1950s and 60s. Dr. Reed contemplated the diplomatic nightmare this revelation presented. This was humanity's true first contact, the first judge declared. Not with us, but with a younger species who needed your help. Your leaders chose fear over compassion. Secrecy over truth. Power over mercy. Those responsible are long dead, Admiral Cooper argued. You can't hold today's humanity accountable for decisions made 70 years ago. Can't we? The second judge challenged. Your governments maintain this secret even now. The descendants of those who made these choices continue to hide the truth. Professor White stepped forward. Then let us make it right. Show us how. The third judge's form pulsed. The young species who crashed on your world? They evolved. They advanced. They are now members of this council. A platform descended from the spiraling tiers above. On it stood 3 beings, humanoid but with silvery skin and large, dark eyes, exactly matching descriptions from thousands of human UFO reports. We are the children of those you killed, one of them spoke directly into their minds. We are here to know if humanity deserves forgiveness for its past, and a place among the stars. Dr. Reed stepped forward, tears in his eyes. On behalf of humanity, I apologize for the horrific actions of our past. We cannot undo what was done, but we can acknowledge it, learn from it, and work to deserve your forgiveness. Admiral Cooper removed her insignia. The military that I serve exists to protect, not to harm. I vow that if humanity is accepted into the galactic community, our first act will be to declassify everything about Roswell and acknowledge our shame. Professor White spoke next. Any technological advances we gained from your people came at too high a moral cost. We will find our own path forward, but first, we must make amends. The 3 aliens conferred silently. Finally, one spoke. For 70 years, we have watched humanity. We saw your capacity for cruelty in 1947. But we also saw your potential for growth. How will you prove to us that humanity has changed? Dr. Reed thought carefully before answering. By doing now what we should have done then. We will tell the world the truth. All of it. We will face the anger and shame that follows. We will accept responsibility. And we will ask your people to help us establish peaceful first contact protocols for the future. The chamber fell silent. The 3 judges conferred with the alien representatives. Finally, the first judge spoke. Humanity has faced 3 trials. Unity, you showed you could work together to survive disaster. Wisdom, you proved you understood the price of progress and chose your principles over power. And now, forgiveness, you choose truth and reconciliation over continued deception. The second judge added, more importantly, you show remorse not just with words, but with actions. Your willingness to face the consequences of the truth shows growth. The third judge concluded, the children of those who fell at Roswell have chosen to forgive. We honor their choice. Humanity has passed all trials. The chamber erupted in a chorus of alien languages. The human delegation felt the weight of history lifting from their shoulders, replaced by the responsibility of shepherding humanity into a new age. You will be given time to prepare your world for the truth, the first judge announced. Then, in 1 year's time, Earth will be formally welcomed into the Galactic Council. As they prepared to return to Earth, the alien representatives approached them. We forgive humanity not because you deserve it, but because forgiveness is the first step toward peace. Honor it by becoming the species we know you can be. Dr. Reed, Admiral Cooper, and Professor White returned to Earth carrying the greatest secret in human history, and the promise of humanity's bright future among the stars. They had been judged not just on their ability to unite, or their wisdom in choosing right from wrong, but on their capacity to face their darkest truths and choose a better path forward. As they stepped off the transport for the last time, Dr. Reed looked up at the stars, now knowing they were filled with civilizations waiting to welcome humanity. We made it, he said quietly. Not because we're perfect, but because we're willing to learn from our mistakes. Admiral Cooper nodded. And now the real work begins. Professor White smiled. Together, he said. We'll do it together. Above them, the Council ships began to fade from view, leaving Earth to prepare for its new place in the galactic community. Humanity had faced its trials, confronted its past, and earned its future among the stars.